Sheila scares Taylor, Deacon's unexpected visit. The bold and the beautiful spoilers update for Tuesday, March 3rd, indicate that Taylor Hayes will get spooked by something Sheila Sharp says. Deacon Sharp will also pop up for some bonding time with Hope Logan Spencer, so here's what B&B fans can look forward to. Tuesday's episode will be a big day for Deacon, who'll get romantic guidance from his children. Deke Sharp may remind Deacon of how he deserves better than Sheila before his dad heads to Forrester Creations. It looks like Deacon will pay Hope an unexpected visit at work and embrace the chance to see her in action. Of course, it won't take long for Hope to steer the conversation to Taylor and how she's a much better match for Deacon than Sheila. Next, Sheila will make a confession that scares Taylor. Since Sheila will insist she knows what's been going on between Taylor and Deacon, Taylor should end up shaking in her boots. Fortunately, it'll just be a false alarm. Sheila will have some other reason for making that statement, so maybe this will be Taylor deciding not to be Deacon's therapist anymore. Taylor might act like Deacon's made great progress and play it like she's just too busy to keep him as a patient. Perhaps Taylor will promise she knows a lot of other wonderful therapists who can step up. Whatever the case, Sheila will remain in the dark on the attraction that's developed between Deacon and Taylor. That news has to come out eventually, but more drama has to go down first. In the meantime, Steffi Forrester Finnegan will need John Finn Finnegan's words of wisdom. Finn may sense that Steffi's on edge and ask how he can help. Steffi will open up about something on Monday's show, so she may have lingering fears when it comes to Taylor and Deacon's bond. Taylor agreed to shut things down with Deacon, but Steffi may worry that's only temporary and that her mom won't be able to stay away from him. That could put Taylor at risk along with those closest to her, so Steffi may spell out her concerns to Finn and get some reassurance. Finn may promise to protect his family no matter what and do whatever he can to keep Sheila from spinning out again. Even so, the bold and the beautiful spoilers hint that Steffi may have a bad feeling about the disaster to come. In Tuesday's emotionally charged episode of The Bold and the Beautiful, tension ripples through Los Angeles as secrets, suspicions, and unspoken attraction threaten to erupt, beginning with an unexpected visit that sets everything into motion. Deacon Sharp arrives at Forrester Creations, determined yet conflicted, after receiving heartfelt romantic guidance from his children, who gently but firmly remind him that he deserves more than the chaos and danger that so often follows Sheila Sharp. Emboldened by their encouragement, Deacon decides to see Hope Logan Spencer at work, and the reunion between father and daughter is warm, affectionate, and layered with unspoken concern as Hope embraces the opportunity to witness her father striving for something better, yet wastes no time in steering the conversation toward what she believes is the obvious truth: that Taylor Hayes is a far healthier and more compatible match for him than Sheila could ever be, citing Taylor's compassion, emotional stability, and genuine care as qualities that contrast sharply with Sheila's manipulative unpredictability. Meanwhile, across town, a far more ominous confrontation unfolds when Sheila corners Taylor Hayes with a cryptic confession that instantly drains the color from Taylor's face, as Sheila coolly insists she knows what has been going on between Taylor and Deacon, causing Taylor's heart to pound and her mind to race at the thought that their fragile, carefully concealed connection has somehow been exposed, and for a breathless moment Taylor imagines the devastating fallout: Steffi's fury, Finn's alarm, Deacon's guilt, and Sheila's wrath. But the bombshell proves to be a false alarm when Sheila's statement veers in another direction, revealing that she is unaware of the romantic spark simmering beneath the surface. Instead, Sheila's words relate to something else entirely, perhaps Taylor's professional involvement with Deacon as his therapist, prompting Taylor to seize the opportunity to distance herself under the guise of clinical ethics and scheduling demands, suggesting that Deacon has made tremendous progress and that it may be time for him to transition to another qualified therapist, a decision she frames as practical and responsible even as it serves to protect her heart from feelings she can no longer deny. Despite Taylor's attempt to draw a clear boundary, the emotional undercurrent between her and Deacon remains potent and unresolved, a secret that will inevitably surface but must first simmer amid escalating drama. Elsewhere, Steffi Forrester Finnegan senses the shifting tides and turns to John Finn Finnegan for reassurance, confiding her lingering fears that her mother's agreement to shut things down with Deacon may only be temporary, because Steffi knows too well how powerful attraction can override logic, especially when vulnerability and compassion intertwine, and she worries that if Taylor cannot stay away from Deacon. Sheila could spiral into another dangerous obsession, placing not only Taylor but everyone connected to her in jeopardy. Finn listens with empathy and steadiness, promising to protect his family no matter what and vowing to prevent Sheila from spinning out of control again, yet even his calm assurances cannot fully dispel the shadow looming over them. As Steffi admits she has a terrible feeling that disaster is approaching, a premonition fueled by years of trauma and hard-earned instinct. Back at Forrester Creations, Deacon leaves his visit with hope, both inspired and conflicted, torn between loyalty to Sheila, gratitude for the unexpected stability she has recently shown, and the undeniable pull he feels toward Taylor, whose quiet strength and moral clarity awaken in him a longing for redemption and authenticity. The stage is thus set for a collision course of love, fear, and revelation, as Sheila remains blissfully unaware of the growing threat to her relationship. Taylor struggles to suppress emotions that challenge her professional boundaries. Deacon stands at a crossroads between past and future. Hope champions a healthier path for her father, and Steffi braces for the storm she senses on the horizon, all converging into a day where one unexpected visit and one terrifying misunderstanding deepen the fractures between loyalty and desire, safety and risk, and ultimately leave every character questioning whether the calm they cling to is merely the quiet before a devastating reckoning. As the afternoon light filtered through the tall glass windows of Forrester Creations, the unease that had begun earlier in the day only deepened, stretching like a thin crack in glass that threatened to splinter without warning. Deacon left Hope's office with her words echoing in his mind, gentle but firm reminders that he was worthy of stability, respect, and a partner who didn't carry a trail of destruction behind her. Hope hadn't attacked Sheila outright. Instead, she had calmly painted a picture of what Deacon's life could look like if he allowed himself to choose peace over chaos. Taylor's name had surfaced more than once, and each time it did, Deacon felt a complicated mixture of warmth and guilt. He admired Taylor's compassion, the way she listened without judgment, and the subtle strength in her encouragement. What had begun as therapy sessions had evolved into lingering glances and conversations that extended beyond clinical necessity. He knew the line had blurred, even if neither of them had fully crossed it. Meanwhile, Taylor sat alone in her office, still shaken by Sheila's earlier insinuation. Though the threat had proven hollow, the fear it sparked was very real. For a moment, Taylor had believed everything was about to unravel, that Sheila somehow knew about the emotional intimacy growing between her and Deacon. The mere possibility had forced Taylor to confront how vulnerable she truly was. She prided herself on her professionalism and her ability to maintain boundaries, yet her heart had quietly rewritten the rules. Ending Deacon's therapy had been the logical step, the responsible choice, but logic did little to quiet the ache forming in her chest. She told herself she was protecting her family, especially Steffi, but deep down she also feared what her own feelings might become if given room to grow. Across town, Sheila replayed her encounter with Taylor, sensing the flicker of panic she had successfully ignited. Sheila might not know the full truth, but she was a master at reading tension. Taylor's reaction had been too sharp, too defensive. Something was there, Sheila was certain of it. Whether it was guilt, attraction, or merely discomfort, Sheila intended to find out. She had fought too hard for her place beside Deacon to lose him to someone she viewed as sanctimonious and judgmental. In her mind, Taylor represented everything that had excluded her from acceptance, respectability, education, social standing. Sheila convinced herself that if Deacon drifted toward Taylor, it would only prove that the world still refused to let her change. Steffi, unable to shake her foreboding, pressed Finn for more than reassurance that evening. She needed strategy. She needed certainty. She explained that her fear wasn't just about romantic betrayal, it was about safety. Whenever Sheila felt cornered or replaced, her instability surged. Steffi knew firsthand how quickly that spiral could turn violent. Finn, steady and compassionate, acknowledged her concerns and promised vigilance. He suggested they keep open communication with Taylor and remain alert to any unusual behavior from Sheila. Yet even as he spoke, Finn recognized that their lives had been shaped by unpredictability for too long. Promises felt fragile when history suggested chaos was inevitable. Later that night, Deacon found himself alone at Il Giardino, staring at the empty tables after closing. The restaurant had become his sanctuary, a place where he could rebuild his reputation brick by brick. But even here, his thoughts circled back to Taylor. He replayed their last session, her calm voice, the empathy in her eyes, the subtle shift when their hands had brushed. He wondered whether ending therapy meant ending whatever connection was forming or whether it might free them to explore something honest and mutual. Yet the thought of hurting Sheila complicated everything. For all her darkness, she had shown vulnerability with him. She had tried, in her own flawed way, to build something steady. Deacon wrestled with the question that refused to leave him alone: was loyalty about standing by someone no matter what, or was it about choosing the healthiest path forward? Unbeknownst to him, Sheila stood outside the restaurant, watching through the window before stepping away into the shadows. She had intended to surprise him, but seeing him lost in thought unsettled her. Sheila recognized that distant look. It meant his mind was elsewhere. Determination hardened within her. She would not allow another woman, especially Taylor, to steal what she had claimed. If there was even a spark between them, she would extinguish it before it became a flame. The following morning, tension thickened as Taylor encountered Deacon unexpectedly near the Forrester showroom. Their eyes met, and for a brief second, everything else faded. There was no therapy couch between them now, no pretense of professional distance. Deacon thanked her for everything she had done for him, acknowledging that her guidance had genuinely changed his outlook. Taylor smiled softly, insisting his growth was his own accomplishment. But beneath the polite exchange simmered unspoken emotion. They both sensed that this goodbye might not be permanent. Elsewhere, Hope confided in Brooke about her conversation with Deacon. Brooke, ever protective of her daughter and wary of Sheila, agreed that Taylor would be a far better influence. However, Brooke also recognized the volatility of the situation. If Sheila suspected anything, retaliation was likely. The ripple effect could touch all of them. Hope remained hopeful, true to her nature, but even she couldn't ignore the storm clouds gathering. Steffi's unease intensified when she learned Taylor had officially stepped down as Deacon's therapist. While she appreciated her mother's attempt to create distance, she worried it might have the opposite effect. Without professional boundaries, what would stop personal feelings from taking over? Steffi confronted Taylor gently but firmly, urging her to prioritize safety above all else. Taylor assured her daughter that she understood the risks, yet she stopped short of denying the emotional complexity. That omission did not go unnoticed. By evening, the stage felt set for confrontation. Sheila arrived at Forrester Creations under the guise of delivering a message but clearly hunting for information. She encountered Taylor in the hallway, her smile deceptively calm. This time, there were no veiled hints, only a measured observation that people sometimes underestimate her ability to sense betrayal. Taylor maintained composure, refusing to confirm or deny anything beyond professional courtesy. The tension between them was electric, charged with suspicion and defiance. Unseen by both women, Steffi watched from a distance, her instincts screaming that events were accelerating towards something irreversible. She texted Finn to meet her, needing his steady presence as an anchor. When he arrived, she confessed that her bad feeling had grown stronger. Finn reassured her once more, yet his expression betrayed concern. They both understood that when emotions, jealousy, and history collided in their world, consequences rarely remained contained. As the day closed, each character retreated to private contemplation. Deacon stood at a crossroads, feeling the pull of redemption and the weight of loyalty. Taylor grappled with desire and responsibility, questioning whether denying her heart truly served anyone. Sheila sharpened her vigilance, convinced that threats lurked just beyond her sightline. Steffi and Finn fortified themselves emotionally, preparing for impact even if they couldn't predict its shape. What none of them realized was that the true disaster Steffi sensed might not stem from a single revelation but from the accumulation of secrets, half-truths, and suppressed longing. In a world where passion and betrayal intertwined as naturally as love and forgiveness, the smallest spark could ignite an inferno. And as alliances shifted and suspicions deepened, it became clear that the unexpected visit, the false alarm, and the whispered fears were merely the opening moves in a far more dangerous game, one where hearts and lives alike hung in the balance, and where the line between salvation and catastrophe grew thinner with every passing moment. The next ripple came quietly, almost deceptively so. Deacon made a decision that surprised even him. He chose not to go home right away. Instead, he drove along the coast, windows down, letting the cold ocean air clear his head. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to imagine a future not defined by damage control. In that imagined future, there were no whispered warnings about Sheila's instability, no tense conversations about the past resurfacing. There was laughter. There was calm. And, whether he intended it or not, Taylor's face kept appearing in that vision. The realization both comforted and unsettled him. Wanting peace was one thing, risking an explosion to get it was another. Back at her house, Taylor found herself staring at her phone more than once, debating whether to send Deacon a simple message, something neutral, something safe. She resisted. Ending the therapy arrangement had been necessary, and she needed to prove, especially to Steffi, that she could uphold that boundary. Yet the silence between her and Deacon felt heavier than expected. It wasn't just professional distance, it felt like unfinished conversation. She reminded herself that emotional entanglements formed in vulnerable spaces could be misleading. Still, her heart argued otherwise. Sheila, meanwhile, decided subtlety had run its course. She approached Deacon that evening with unusual sweetness, preparing his favorite meal and speaking of long-term plans, renovations to the apartment, shared travel dreams, even talk of stability that bordered on domestic bliss. But beneath the warmth was calculation. She watched his reactions closely, searching for flickers of hesitation. When he smiled but didn't fully engage in her fantasies of permanence, her suspicion sharpened. She didn't confront him outright, she simply stored the evidence away, building a case in her mind. Steffi's tension reached a peak when she dreamed of the past, chaos, sirens, hospital rooms. She woke with a start and immediately checked on her children. The fear wasn't abstract to her, it was lived experience. When she later confided in Finn, she admitted that her bad feeling felt less like anxiety and more like instinct. Finn held her, promising once again that they would stay ahead of any threat. But even he understood that prevention required information, and right now, too much remained hidden. As all of them moved through their routines the following day, the air felt charged, as though an invisible clock were ticking down. A glance held a second too long. A question left unanswered. A door closed with more force than necessary. Each small moment layered onto the next, tightening the coil of inevitability. Whether the coming disaster would erupt in confrontation, confession, or something far more dangerous remained unknown. But one truth had become undeniable: emotions once suppressed were rising to the surface, and no amount of denial or strategy could keep them contained forever.